Hello, listeners. Are you ready to get down, get dirty, get a little bit hoary, a little bit trophy, a little bit of Chivo hoary? Let's see what we can find for you today. Push2 A Plat Level Cap, Episode 5. As you know, a pure trophy and achievement hunting podcast. We're here only to raise your level and our own. Together, we're going to smash this cap. So we had a little conflict of times this week, listeners, so you just stuck with me today. Joe will be back next week. Don't panic, but don't worry, I have plenty of hoary goodness to spread around. And look, why don't we start today with just checking in on the leaderboards and our positions. Let's start with CoolKidJoe. He's reached level 45, 229 plats, 1,259th in the world, with a staggering 954 trophies already in February. Because it's a leap year, I anticipate him hitting the Hall max here of 1,000, which is a fantastic effort, sir. A 1K month. We should get a bell. I have a feeling it's going to happen more and more often now that you've discovered the alternate Vita regional accounts that are available. Now, my level, listeners. Well, look, it continues to go up somewhat slowly, perhaps, but look at my age, that is nothing new. I am at level 161 with 975 plats. That's right, we're closing in on plat 1K. No, I have no idea what it is. Yes, it is likely it will be a Rata plat. Don't panic. I've retained the 69th position. Yes, it was a worrying. I slipped briefly down to 70, but look, I'm comfortable in that 69 position, and I'm sure that's where I will be staying. I am trailing Joe this month with 895 trophies, and unless I make a dash to the street corner later tonight, maybe pick up a little loose clientele for those final couple of trophies, I have a feeling he's gonna take me from in front. Which, look, good luck to him. So, listeners, now look, I'm not that interested in the news, but I thought this was funny. This is a bit of funny PlayStation news, so why not? I don't know if you're across this PlayStation Player Celebration event they're running. It was in 3 stages. Look, the numbers look very ambitious, the number of games they had to play, the number of trophies. But as we all know, Sony has no real idea about the trophies and the players and what they mean to the larger community. So they set these numbers, and it has been fantastic to see these numbers just continually smashed out of the park. In fact, they're going so quickly at the moment, you may not even be able to meet any of the requirements before they finish. But we are in Stage 2. Now, Stage 2 started this morning. I'd like to inform you that it is already too late to put a game in to qualify. They needed to reach 375 games played. They have already reached that. But you are in luck. You could still earn a trophy for this event if you like. They're at 52% completion. So look, by the time you've listened to this podcast, it'll be well too late. Look, by the time I finish it, it's probably going to be too late. They've hit a staggering 779,547 trophies out of the 1.5 million required. Now, there is a third level, so, by all means, get in and have a go. At the end of the second level, it looks like they're going to unlock some lovely avatars, and the final level will be a dynamic theme, which are God of War, Uncharted Horizons, so, what more could you not want there than that? Definitely something to take a look at. What I found impressive about this event, listeners, is that if you looked into it, you could only earn a maximum per person of 6 trophies a day, and the game had to be played for longer than an hour, so not necessarily longer than an hour. Now, obviously, that discounts me and probably most of the people listening to this podcast, but it was fantastic to see Sony finally stepping up and showing some true trophy love, despite the fact that the numbers are out, the requirements are out, and it's a total shit show of whoever wins that final platinum trophy. But may you be lucky, listeners. May you be lucky. Anyway, let's push Sony to the side. They're just the inconvenience of providing the platform we play on at this stage. So, having talked about Sony a bit, perhaps it's time to shift to the Microsoft side. We have reached that time of the month, listeners, that warm and cozy time where you get to see what your subs to the mega giants of gaming actually buy you. So why don't we start with Sony here? We've got Shadow of the Colossus. Look, it's a PlayStation exclusive, a mega PlayStation exclusive. This remake in full glory came out a few years ago. They're now offering it for free. Yes, it's a very, very beautiful game. Yes, it is probably worth your time. Perhaps if you're a new gamer, you have not played this. If that's the case, let me throw some numbers at you. It's rated a 6 out of 10 across most trophy guides. It requires around 6 playthroughs. It's a 40-hour plat. it is going to include time attacks and also hard mode time attacks. So consider that. Maybe play it not for the trophies, maybe play it for the enjoyment or not. I have a little personal experience for this game. There is a bit of exploration required. It is of the old styling game, so, take that as you will. It wasn't particularly for me, but I know there'll be many, many people looking forward to this. Now, interestingly here, Sony have come out strong and played the Sonic card here with Sonic Forces. So if you're not familiar with this game, a little bit easier, a 5 out of 10, one playthrough, 15 hours. That's much more manageable, I feel. There is a hard mode, and there will be grinding at the end, depending on how you play it, for the silver moons and number rings. But look, a very enjoyable overall game. Fairly strong showing for Sony, I believe. Now let's go over to Xbox. You'll just have to let me catch my breath here for a moment, because as usual, they've offered four games split across the month. They're first offering Batman: The Enemy Within. So a Telltale release. What can you expect? Well, look, you can expect a pretty good story. This was a good one this first season. It is around 10 to 12 hours, no missables, as you're accustomed to with most Telltale games, and it is one playthrough. The second offering, we have a Shantae Genie Hero. We're looking at about 11 to 15 hours, one playthrough, although 2 recommended. Of note in this particular game is that you must 100% the game in under 4 hours. So there is in effect 2 speedrun trophies, but by achieving this, you will meet the requirements for the 1000 gamer score. Castlevania. How appropriate, Castlevania. Lord of Shadows 2. Look, this is a 7 out of 10, so look, I'm not even going to bother to download this, but this may be in your wheelhouse. We're looking at 25 hours plus, but obviously skill dependent. There is one missable achievement in this game, Classic Favor. It is a miscellaneous task. It's not a difficult task. So if you're going for this, obviously check the guide on that, but only the one missable. And then Microsoft, well played, countering Sony here with Sonic Generations, coming in at around a 4 out of 10 difficulty, 15 to 20 hours, one playthrough, plus replaying levels and challenges. There are 3 online achievements. So what do you think, listeners? Sony or Microsoft this month? I know last month we didn't really make a verdict. We said we were going to, and then we just put it out there. Look, because Joe's not here and he can't counter my opinion, I'm going to say that last month it was a win for Xbox. This month, look, again, it's close. I think this will be highly dependent on whether you've played Shadow of the Colossus or whether you put this on the back burner, assuming that one day it would become on Plus. If not, look, I think I'm leaning again toward Xbox. Only these games are more interesting to me. Shantae is a great platformer game. If you haven't played it, there's a bit of a series there. It's well worth a look. Look, I don't think it's easy at all, but it's a fun, time investment, if you like. Sonic counters each other out. Look, I've never played either of them, but I think it's a push to Sonics. Who cares? Castlevania doesn't interest me, as I've already said. So look, I'm happy. I'm happy with the Xbox this month. I'm impartial to Sony. But hey, if you're a Sony fanboy, I'm sure you love it. So what I thought we'd do, listeners, is we'll jump over to some games to talk this week. As Joe is not here, you only have my input today. But I want to start off with a cheeky, sleazy little platformer, if you like, Invert. Now, you may have already played this. It did come out a while ago, but again, not too much fanfare. IN-VERT, if you are looking for it on Xbox, Microsoft, and the Switch. Interestingly enough, on PlayStation, this is available on the US and UK stores, as many EU stores, but not on the Australian store at this stage still. So you will have to do a little regional shopping if you're looking for this game. Developed by Turnox and Victory Road LLC. So, what you need to know. It's a 40-minute to 1 hour plat. Again, skill dependent. Not a lot of skill dependent, but a little bit of skill dependent. Obviously, if you're going to play the game, it is much longer. It comes down to this time limit because of the use of a cheat code. So all you have to do is load into the game, load into the first world, and enter the cheat code up, up, down, down, up, right, right, left, left, right, triangle. Brings back memories of Warlock's Tower. This will bring up the cheat menu. From here, you can choose level skip. So you're basically going back into the level and you just cycle through the cheat menu each time just to skip the level. You don't have to enter the code in. You can skip all the levels through to the first boss. You can skip the first boss, but you need to play the 3 bosses to earn the trophies. So, what can I help you with on the bosses here? Well, look, not a lot. The bosses do telegraph their actions. I've heard that this game can get a little frustrating in the 3rd fight and possibly the 2nd fight. So if you see the boss's movement beforehand, it can help you. If the boss stands tall, in an upright position, you know he's going to move slowly. Ideal for killing boss. If the boss is crouching, it means he's going to jump. Now, it's a very slight leg bend here. We're thinking of maybe a middle-aged woman, doing some, basic yoga, maybe a step up from chair yoga, but you get my idea here. So this is where he's going to jump across the full screen. He likes to chain jumps in 3. Not always, but, he likes that. If the head bobble happens, you need to watch out. You need to get your reactions ready. He is going to fly across the screen. So what do you have to do to this boss? Well, all you have to do is jump on its head. Now, it is a little bit of a narrow hit window, but it's not too bad. Yes, there's going to be some frustration here while you learn them, because as I said, all the moves are very slightly telegraphed. They're not hugely obvious, but you'll pick it up. Having said that, I don't think you need any help with the first boss fight. Of course, the premise, if you like, of this game is being able to invert the background, if you like. So there are obstacles. By pushing the square, it changes the color of the screen and which obstacles are valid, and then, you can move through and you cannot move through. So keep that in mind when you're fighting the bosses. Now, personally, I found the second boss to be very challenging, but probably doesn't surprise you listeners, I did find a cheese method that worked fantastically for myself, and I'd love to share it with you. So, having tried it legit for quite a while, I moved to this cheese method. I got it within 2 goes. I think there's a variation of 4 goes, but look, I think that's a hell of a lot better than trying to do it properly if you're a low-skilled gamer like myself. So what I suggest for the cheese method is to hug the left-hand side of the wall in the second boss fight. He cannot really hit you from this position, provided you land on his head at every pass. When you land on his head, he starts flashing, so as he moves back through you to the right, he can't actually do any damage. Now, yes, the game does cheese you a little bit. Sometimes he shoots things out of his head which somehow reflect off the wall and hit you. So it may take 1 or 2 goes, but, it's really nothing major. If you hug that left-hand wall and you jump and hit him, you're going to win this fight. You're going to be over. It's going to be great. Moving on to the third boss fight. Now, the third boss fight's more of the same. It introduces a laser in the center that swings around the screen. So look, I'm sure there's many strategies here, but if you're looking for the lowest of skill strategies, I would suggest doing the opposite. Head to the right-hand side of the wall. Why I like this strategy for the third boss and the second boss is it doesn't involve you having to invert the backgrounds at all. So all you need to concentrate on is the jumping. Obviously, if you're higher skilled, you can muck around with that. Not necessary, though. So, we're on the right-hand side of the screen. We hit the boss. We know its movements. We know it's going to telegraph. If the head's wobbling, get out of the way. If it's standing tall, go for the kill. If it's bending the knees, it's going to jump you. So, basically what I suggest is landing on its head on the right-hand side. As it moves to the left, crossing, jumping back over the laser, immediately moving to the right, taking another hit. Yes, this boss does occasionally shoot stuff out of its head. It is random. So if it's frustrating you, don't worry. The attacks are random. They will change in the next progression. Stick with it. You will get it. Personally, I got this within 1 go. I found the second fight far harder without the cheese method. So once you get through that second fight, you have this plat. Yes, there's a couple of miscellaneous trophies, but who cares if you own a turbo controller? Why do you not? You can set it to auto jump for you. That will take care of the jump requirements. There is a 666 death requirement. It's a nice touch there. 666. So there are 2 possible options here. You can set it to level 14. You can AFK it. The floor just keeps falling away and you'll slowly get there. It can take a little while depending on how many times you died on the previous 3 boss fights. There is also an option in level 12. Look, it might be slightly quicker, but who cares? They're both fairly quick and AFK methods. So a very easy platinum there for you listeners that maybe, flew under the radar a little bit. So my next game for your listeners, again, this has been on the store for a little while. Again, it's flown under the radar. Well, maybe until the last week or so where a few people started to nasty, sneaky little secrets. This is Mosaic by Krillbyte Studios. Now, I'm going to read you the description here, and then I'll explain why. It says here, you live a monotonous and repetitive lonely life in a cold, overpopulated, ever-expanding city. The phone is distracting you with meaningless notifications as you move through anonymous crowds on your way to work at a mega corporation, where yet another long day with overtime awaits. That sentence is like 3 lines long. Obviously, no commas available that day. Anyway, you have no real sense of meaning. Oh, dash! Of course. Until one crucial day, oh, comma, thank you, when strange things start to happen on your commute to work and everything changes. A dark adventure game. Now, the reason I read you that is because none of this even matters if you're just here for the trophies or the achievements. Available on PlayStation and Xbox. There is a little bit of groundwork you have to do for this game, listeners. You have to invest in a turbo controller. That's right. We've mentioned it before. Turbo controller. As we are not sponsored by any turbo controller company at this stage, I don't need to put in a disclaimer, but I will also not advise you which one to use. We have talked about it before. So, what are you going to do in this game? Well, basically, you're going to load into the game. You're going to be on a bed lying down. You're going to make your character sit up with an upward motion. You're going to pick up the phone on the side. You're going to press triangle. You're already 90% of the way to the plat. Now, what I like about this list, listeners, is if you've played Undertale, you'll be familiar with this. A game designed by someone who obviously does not respect trophies in any way, shape, or form. Yes, all the trophies and achievements will be unlocked through this mini blip game in the phone. You never even have to leave the first room of the game. So look, who knows what the rest of the game even is, but at least we read the description, so we have a rough idea we can pretend to if anyone asks us in the future what we thought of it. So, what are we going to do? We're going to go down to the blip game. Now, you could press X like a crazy mofo if you felt like it, or you could engage your turbo controller. It is basically a button-mashing paradise for the turbo controller. It was built for this. It's going to love you for it. You can think here, my name is Mayo, but like longer, much longer. So long it will climax 10 times in Flax, listeners. So, what's going to happen here? Like a clicker, like a masher, it's going to start to count up for every click of the X button. Now, as it gets up there, you'll notice that you're leveling up. You have a level system on the left-hand side of the screen. It will unlock upgrades. These upgrades focus around the speed, the size of the reserve bank for the clickings, and the multiplier. What you're particularly interested in here is the multiplier. Now, I preface this that this game could be done without engaging the upgrades at all, if you wished. Obviously, it would take a lot longer, but if you wanted to AFK it in large chunks, that's a possibility. And something to keep in mind as I talk through this next section, because at any point you could stop engaging with the upgrades and just let it run AFK for hours. So if you're investing, as you're going up in levels, if you're investing in the upgrades, you'll notice that the clicks, they go up faster and faster and faster. And look, this is really important because we're going to need 1 billion clicks. We're going to need 1 trillion clicks, in fact. So look, if you're doing this without a turbo controller, more power to you. I'll see you when you're 100. But if you're like the rest of us, you're probably looking at around a 9 to 10 hour experience. This is obviously going to vary slightly on whether you engage all the way with the upgrade system or if you choose to AFK it. Once you've upgraded for a while, you'll notice that it's going up very quickly anyway, so this could be the time just to disengage and let it run AFK. Where the length in this game comes is that you need to prestige. Prestige, huh? Where you need to prestige your level each time. Obviously, when you reach level 100, you'll be given the option to prestige on the top left of the screen. If you take this option, it will reduce you to level 1. There is trophies and achievements for level 1, level 5, and level 10 of prestiging the game. So you will need to do this. This is the only part of the game that in effect makes it non-AFK. Very simple to do. Obviously, when you reset, it's going to take all your upgrades away, so you just reinvest in them. The rest of the trophies will come naturally either through acquiring or spending the blips as you go. Would be a fantastic game if you're watching Netflix, if you're playing something else. Look, it's even a wonderful game just to leave running while you leave the house. It is a double stack EU and NA. They are selling it with a 1%, the 1% DLC. This is not required for this method. Now, I do put out a warning here for Xbox and also for PlayStation, although I believe it has been patched in PlayStation. There is sometimes a glitch where you'll get locked out of the upgrade system. This would mean that you do actually have to progress the game, not very far, to get to a save point. Now, the PlayStation version has been patched. Now, as of time of recording, I am 90% through the EU stack, and I've not had any glitches at all. I've also noticed that it actually saves every time you buy a blip upgrade. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this game does not have any glitches anymore on the PlayStation for this method. But if it does, don't feel you've lost your progress. Just check a trophy guide. You can move forward in the game. It will reach a save point and you can continue on. So the next game I'd like to talk about is from East Asia Soft and CoolKidJoe. I'm going to go with CoolKidJoe developer. Look, I'm going to classify this as a bit of a spam of the week, almost a double rata platter. And the reason I'm going to do that will become obvious when we get to the rata platter of this week. And of course, I'm talking of Grizzland. Now, what do you need to know? Well, there will be 3 stacks. It is only PS4 this time, so you're not going to be able to get those delicious 3 Vita stacks. We're looking at EU, NA, and Asia. We're looking at a usual price of around $5 American or equivalents in other stores. The key facts, this is a 20 to 40 minute plat. It does not really require any skill at all, so you can relax. Things you're going to be looking out for in this game. There are 4 power-ups that add skills as you go. When you start the game, you have everything, but about 2 seconds later, they take everything away from you. And it's that typical coming-of-age story, pixelated, of reacquiring all your abilities. You will pick up an attack, a jump, a double jump, and a shrink. Now, what you need to know. There are water balls in this game. You're basically going around and collecting the water balls. There's around 5 or so in each level to feed the tree, which is at the start point of each level. The tree grows and you move up to the next level. The water balls also act as save points in this game. Now, they can be reused. Unfortunately, you can't farm the water from the same bowl, but you can run through it again to refill your health. And act as a save point. Now, this game does not punish you in death because you just respawn on this spot. In fact, if you get stuck somewhere or if you fall down a hole you can't get out of, you can actually choose self-destruct in the menu to go back to the last save point. Depending on whether you're playing this with a guide or not, that can be very, very helpful. Now, there is a trophy for finding 1 and 5 notes. Now, again, you don't really need a guide for this because there are many, many notes. You're going to find more than 5 with just a little bit of looking. But again, if you need the guide, there are some wonderful video walkthroughs. There are 3 secret areas that you will need to find for trophies. You can find secret areas by seeing little pixelated specks floating above them, or you can check a guide. It's very, very simple. Just a process of going into the secret area and out. Now, there are 4 boss fights in this game. I suppose this is where some semblance of skill comes in, if you so wish. I don't want to spoil the fights other than to say the first fight is pretty simple. The second fight is an absolute joke. So I would say the third boss is probably the hardest boss in this game, and that is because of its attacks. Now, its attacks are randomized, much like in Invert that we were talking about previously. So again, if you're just getting a bad combination of attacks, you can just keep dying. There's a spawn point very closely, and you will eventually get the right combination for you. They are also telegraphed in this game through pixelations, just where they're going to hit, and then they come in. So you will get very used to them. My tip with this game would be, my tip with the third boss would be to stay in the center. If the attacks are coming from the left, and there are attacks that move from the right to the left or across the bottom of the screen to the left, there's still enough time to run to that side if you need to. It's a very small area. By staying in the center, it allows you to avoid the triangle attacks, probably the most dangerous attacks in the game. You can literally just jump straight up and land down, and after they've done their first loop, they will just expand out and keep passing you. So it becomes very easy. There is a slightly difficult attack where they spin 2 triangles at once. But look, it's fine. My other tip for this game on the third boss, it also carries to the fourth boss, is that the animation when you swing your sword is very slow. It's a better strategy I've found over 3 stacks not to mash the square button on the third boss. You're only going to register 1 hit before he disappears and reappears anyway, so there's no advantage. If you start the second strike, it's going to slow you down, and it means you won't get any more than probably 3 hits. It is possible, depending on where he spawns, to get 4 or 5 hits. So if you're having trouble with this level, that potentially means you could miss as much as 1 or 2 of his series of attacks, which would make this even easier. But look, if you have a little bit of skill, you're probably not going to need that anyway. That is Grizzland. You should be on that. So the next game I'd like to throw out for you is actually a stack of a game that came out some time ago. And this is the Meko Tales. Now, this is a great deal, this game. It's currently like $1.85 on the Australian store, equivalent currencies around the world. And I'm talking here of the EU version of this game. So if you're not familiar with this, this is by the developer Arcade Distillery. It is a platformer. I mean, it's almost like a phone platformer, to be honest with you, in its play. You're not going to get a very deep game, but look, having said that, it is quite fun. Now, there are 8 levels, if you like, each that have 2 sub-levels to the levels. The one premise for this game, or warning, I suppose, of the difficulty for this game is that if you die within one of the sub-levels, you are reset to the start of it again. So there could be a little bit of frustration, particularly if you haven't played the first stack before and you're not familiar with this game. Having said that, look, it is still very easy. The levels are only a couple of minutes each. The enemies, most of the time, you can be far enough away from that they can't hit you. It's a twin stick, in a way, sort of game, so you can always angle your shots. Now, there are an upgrade system of different weapons. You will need to unlock them all by collecting the cogs throughout the game. Now, I found that actually the opening missile weapon is just as strong as everything else. Maybe you'll like something like the lightning, which is one of the early unlocks as well. But look, it doesn't really matter. You can easily fly through the whole game like that. There are 5 major boss fights. They vary in difficulty. In fact, I thought the first one was probably one of the hardest in the game. The second becomes very easy, third and fourth. The final boss fight is not that difficult. There is a cheese method if you're finding it hard, where, again, you hug the left-hand side wall. Seems to be a theme today, listeners. And then jump up on the attacks that are coming across. Now, look, yes, these enemies do take a lot of hits, so it's more about conserving your health than anything else. But look, you're looking at around 2 to 4 hours for this game, depending on it. As I said, if you played it before, there will be a short grind in this game for killing the 500 enemies, which again shows you how short the game actually is, and also collecting enough of the cogs to buy everything in the store. But look, aside from that, it's wonderful. Look, it does also play on Vita. I would put a little warning there. I find this game much better on the PS4. I find it a little bit clunky and the controls a little bit annoying on the Vita, but it is there. My understanding at time of recording is the EU Vita version is still AFK. Nobody knows where it is, even though the list is up. But look, if you haven't come on to that game, there's 3 stacks there waiting for you with the NA, PS4, and Vita as well. Now, the Ratter Platter of the week. So I saved this to the end, listeners, because it's a little different, I suppose. We're not used to this from Rattalaika. It's a 4 to 6 hour game. Now, the devs here are Reese Games. So let me tell you about this. The Gun Bear Super Strikers. It is 6 stacks. We have NA, EU, and AS, both PS4 and Vita. It is cross-buy, and as usual, you'd expect to pay... Oh, actually, the price is up a little bit on this one by a couple of dollars, listeners. But look, I have a feeling that there's not going to be too many people that will want to stack this game. Now, let me just explain to you exactly what it is. It is a tactical RPG turn-based soccer match. Now, look, if you're English, this is probably a wet dream. But for the rest of the world, I'm not sure how appealing this really is going to be. The game runs in 2 halves of 20 minutes each. Now, it is not 20 minutes real time. Each turn takes a fair few minutes off the clock, but it's still going to take you a good 15 minutes per match. The good news is you only have to play the story mode, although there are plenty of matches here, and you can play it on easy setting in the options as well. So the game overall is quite easy. Look, if you like tactical RPGs, I think once around this game is quite fun. As I said, I'm not sure how well it will go down across the multiple stacks, but look, I'm sure someone will do it. In full disclosure, myself and Joe both sort of passed on this game this week. Maybe we'll come back and chip away at it, but not for either of us. But look, maybe for somebody in the middle that likes some sort of longer spam to fill out their list. So that brings us, listeners, finally to what we're going to waste our money on this week. Well, as again, Joe's not here, but look, I'm sure we can assume he's going to waste it on anything under 5 minutes. For me this week, I've gone a little bit ham on the store. We've got a couple of spam titles that I just have not had time to cover at this point. They might appear next week, but why don't you check them out first for me? That is Bucket Night. That is going to be across 3 regions, I believe, PS4 and Vita. Double stacks. That is a cross-buy game. We also have Vassilis, which is only NA and EU, but it is PS4 and Vita. Separate stacks, but not cross-buy. I've also I've also decided to jump back into this MX Nitro Unleashed. There was an MX game a few years ago that came out. This is basically a Trials Fusion-esque game. It's a lot easier, obviously, in that it doesn't have the challenges. It's more of a race style of game, side-scrolling racer. There are some online trophies. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a plat, but look, it's quite fun, and it's actually come out quite reasonably this time on the store. Look, I'm also going to take a bite at this Overpass. This is a high skill, I believe, quite challenging racer of sorts, monster truck-esque vertical climb game, an obstacle course game. So that looks interesting. Throw on maybe a little bit of House Flipper because, why not? That sounds interesting as well. And I think that will keep me more than busy. So look, listeners, I hope we've offered you something today to continue to rise your level score. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget, sub on YouTube. Look, even if you don't listen to us there, sub on YouTube, write us a comment, give us a 1 or a 4 or something on iTunes, something so we know you're alive, listeners. If you want to reach out to us, we're on Push2 Plat, push the number 2 Plat at Twitter. The Discord will be in the show notes. Come and say hi if you like. If you're looking for more conversational podcasts, make sure you check out the main show, Push2 Plats. That is out early every week. Have a wonderful weekend, listeners. May the trophies be plentiful and the platinums bountiful. May the bar forever be opened. May we all rise together and smash that cap. Until next week, be well, have fun.